Welcome to Living Ardently. I'm your host, Adrian Giraldi, and we missed you guys. It's been a while. This episode, as you may have seen, is on Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, and it's really exciting because this movie was really great, and I enjoyed it a lot. Spoiler warnings for those who have not watched it yet, but it's been 3 weeks. I've held it from releasing this so that it wouldn't be so soon after the film, so that more people could probably listen to it. So hope you guys have watched it, and if you haven't, go do it now. Go see the film. It's really good. And if you have, well, hope you enjoy this episode. I got to chat with Noreen Domingo, who's going to be coming on as a guest co-host on our future episodes, this episode and future episodes, when we talk about Marvel and all these things. And we're going to have this part of our kind of normal thing where we take things that I like to talk about, and which is like Marvel and other nerdy things, and we get to put them in the context of faith. So we get to do that today with Shang-Chi, our biggest takeaways, and there's so much more that we left out. If you want to read more or learn more about my opinions on this, go check out the article I wrote for my job, Grotto Network. I'll post that in the link below. I'm also going to be a guest on Ave Spotlight with Chanel Shaw. She's hosting that and is having me on to talk about Shang-Chi. So if you want more things about me talking about Shang-Chi, go check out those two things. It's going to be really great. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And let me know what you guys think about the movie. Send me a DM. I'd love to talk about it because, again, I just love Marvel. And I particularly love this movie. All right, y'all. Enjoy this episode. I'll see you next time. Peace. All right, we are here with Noreen Domingo. Noreen, welcome to the team.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adrian. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so we met because of The Living Person, I think, really. You are working with The Living Person. What do you do exactly with them?
So I'm their email marketing intern. And so whenever you see those daily emails of inspiration to your inbox, that's me. I curate those quotes that you receive. And then also some Tuesdays, I do the Instagram takeover.
Oh, there you go. So that's so if you're not familiar, for those of you who are not familiar, The Living Person is ran by one of our other co-hosts, Jarrell Cison, and has a team that he's built, and Noreen's part of them. And that's kind of how we connected, because Jarrell's a good friend of mine, and now and been a co-host for over a year now. And I was like, oh, somebody. No, I think it was because of my episode on WandaVision.
Yeah.
My IGTV, where I had realized where we had really had the initial conversation of like, oh, you love Marvel. Oh, you're Catholic. Oh, this is great. And we just kind of had this conversation, and you gave me some really good stuff about to talk about for WandaVision, and then also Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then obviously Loki came along. There was so much more there, but that's initially what this episode was going to be on. But now with Shang-Chi coming out and rocking our world, that's what we have to talk about. That I had to shift it. We had to shift it. We'll have Noreen back, and we'll be talking all Marvel things with Noreen, the future, and how it ties into our faith and stuff, because it's just like so rich. Marvel stories are just so rich with stuff like that, and it's kind of just like under the radar, you don't realize, and they're so good at it. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna have that, but today we're talking about Shang-Chi. So if you haven't watched it, spoiler warning, because we'll definitely be talking about the movie and some of its plot points. And if you don't want it to be ruined, then this is your chance to back out now and come back when you have watched it. Yeah. First of all, let's introduce you a little bit more before we go into Shang-Chi. A little bit about yourself, so that our audience can get to know you a bit more.
Okay, yeah. So born in Hawaii, raised in Orange County, California. Spent my childhood between those two places. Total cradle Catholic. Um, Went to the Naval Academy for college out in Annapolis, Maryland. So did the Navy thing for a while, and I think that's where I finally owned my faith as an actual adult in person.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and got stationed out here in San Diego. And so I just finished my time in the Navy this past June. And so I'm
Nice.
free in a way
Nice.
to see.
Mhm.
Um, I'm able to do a podcast on a Wednesday morning rather than being in uniform on the base. So definitely really awesome. Um, I just love San Diego. It's such a great place with a lot of young adult Catholics,
Mhm.
um, where they get to foster my love for the MCU as well.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just go live down the street from the beach. So I'm often surfing, playing volleyball. And I also now work at my church down the street, St. Bridget's in Pacific Beach. And so
Nice.
get to take my business mindset that I learned from the Navy and combine it with the ministry. Um, and yeah, and I'm the youngest of five kids. So
Oh,
really
really?
great big family, get to learn a lot about love and forgiveness and mercy through my relationships with them, and then get to foster it in my love for nature and just being outdoors. So yeah.
Awesome. And your family, your parents are from the Philippines as well, or?
Yes, yes, I'm a first generation American as well.
Yeah.
First generation Filipino American.
Yeah, same as me, and it's. I think that being a first generation like Asian American in general will help you understand a lot of the deeper, like some of the themes here in Shang-Chi a lot. Like, I don't know, it just gives you a better understanding of it, and maybe speaks to you more than you expected it to,
Oh
just like
yeah.
it did for me. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that. And before we go on, like I said, we are like our podcasts are. If you don't know, our podcasts are available on YouTube the day before they release on podcast. So go check it out. Go watch the video. Go see our wonderful faces on YouTube. Subscribe there. You can follow Living Ardently at it's on Instagram. Living Ardently. Follow myself at It's Only Adrian. Noreen. You can follow her at
Noreen underscore MAE.
there you go. And yeah, everywhere else you're listening, if you're listening on podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave us a rating if you're listening on Apple Podcast. And yeah, so now that we got that out of the way, and what was your favorite thing from Shang-Chi?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Right. It's very
uh,
broad, I know, but like let's
yeah.
start off broad and go in.
Okay. Well, favorite, I think you kind of talked about it already, like how much it speaks to you as an AAPI member. I
Mm-hmm.
think there are a lot of things that I experienced that I either thought was just like exclusive to me or exclusive to everyone. And it turns out maybe it was just exclusive to me. For example,
Mm-hmm.
um, the idea of like, let's go get karaoke with our friends right after, it's like, I think that just started off so well of like the
Mm-hmm.
relationship with Katie and Sean, or at the time Sean, not
Yeah.
Shang-Chi yet.
Yeah.
Because I know that, like, for example, these karaoke bars are really popular in Korea or popular in Japan. And so just to see him here, which is something my family loves to do, is karaoke. And then now I get to see it with my friends, go karaokeing. It's just so fun because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a 20 something and I'm Asian American and I do that. Like,
Yeah.
that's so fun. And
Mm-hmm.
then, and even moving forward to when Wu and Lee are raising Shang-Chi and Chua Ling as little kids and they're playing DDR.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that like Shang-Chi was born in 1996, I was born in 95. And so just to
Mm-hmm.
see that tie in with my life with Shang-Chi was just so awesome. And just like following along with his relationship with his dad, his relationship with his mom, and just trying to see like, oh, like, am I my mom? Am I my dad? Like, I have to go
Mm-hmm.
both, or can I mold them together? And then
Mm-hmm.
even his like desire to like run away from Shuang Ling, his little sister. So just the
Right.
whole character of Shang-Chi, of like how he lives his life, what he does for fun, is my favorite part because I felt like I identified with that so much
Mm-hmm.
as a 20 something here in America. And so
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah, it really like digs. You find they made his story so wide reaching, but still and so relatable. Like for myself, like I mean, I was born and raised in America, for like I said, first generation, and I was the one of the family that kind of left home like
Mhm.
first and was away. Obviously, I was the oldest of two. I had three older half siblings, but they were born in the Philippines, and so I was kind of the first generation, born here. Um, and I had this like similar experience of like having to, I mean, learn a new culture, like he had to, Obviously, he already knew English. Like he was a little bit different where he was born outside of the states and then came, obviously. But it was just I don't know. His character was just so um, well written, and I think someone that we all as Asian Americans, no matter like first generation or beyond, like you could relate to. Um, and again, he's just like he's more than just like our first Asian superhero. He's like he's us, like he really is. They really wrote this his character really well, and obviously they had the comics to kind of bounce off of, but the comics aren't always 100%. The movies aren't 100% accurate to the comics, which is great because it leaves that um, I guess that hope for newness, like of telling the stories, which I guess the comics are always made to. Like there's always supposed to be something new, and you're not supposed to be able to tell what's going to happen in each comic. There's supposed to
Mhm.
be twists and turns, and that's what this film really I love the most about it. It was just all the twists and turns about, like how you really thought his father was always just going to be, um, Renru was going to be a tyrant and want to, but then halfway through the film you realize, oh, he gave up his rings. Like he gave it up to live a normal life, and only he's he back because he wants to have that life back in a way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I thought that was such a well-written character
Mm-hmm.
because it just shows like how villains aren't linear.
Mm-hmm.
It showed like all the layers and like at the end of the day, it's like he wanted just his family to come back together. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like his wife Lee had given him so much hope and like she was the only one who believed in him. And so he was just kept chasing that. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be loved again. And like it's so unfortunate that he couldn't see that his kids already looked at him like that. And
Right. Oh,
so oh I
heartbreaking. It's so good. I mean, Marvel has been doing really well with the making sure these villains aren't linear anymore. In the beginning, they kind of had that. Obviously, we have Loki being not very linear at all, and you had Killmonger, um, from Black Panther, who wasn't linear, um, and Thanos even wasn't linear. He was, I mean, he was gone genocide, but he had somewhat of a reason that kind of made him like, oh man,
yeah.
like some people, I know some people who believe Thanos's idea was actually like a good idea. I'm like, bro, like it's not how it's supposed to go. Like,
The human population isn't a rose brush, it's not
right?
that.
That was good.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not, but yikes.
yeah. I was like,
Uh,
okay,
I
um,
I did love
what?
was um the beauty of Talo and just the
Mm.
grace of Lee when she was guarding the entrance to
Oh
Talo.
yeah,
Oh, that
mm.
was the best openings. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I love.
There's a specific type of like that's a like a theme in older like kung fu movies, like where it's like a beautiful poetic fight in
Mhm.
a pretty place. It's like a certain I forget what the name of the thing is, but I saw it in a video and they're like explaining that this is like a very common thing to do in certain like especially kung fu type movies
Mhm.
where there will be a fight scene that is in a very
pleasing and peaceful place, and the
Mm,
fight is like the way, the slow mo, the glances, and it was just so good. That was like so beautiful.
that's amazing. And I wonder what the antithesis is supposed to be then, because the fight between Shang-Chi and Wenwu at the end,
Mm-hmm.
although Shang-Chi was taking on the fights or the moves of his mother,
Mm-hmm.
the place was like
Dark.
terrible. It was
Right.
totally dark
True.
and grimy. So I wonder what the meaning is there.
Yeah, that's interesting, huh? Yeah, it's so true, and it's so. And the thing I loved about that final scene too is that he really showed balance. Like you can see it's like his movements were like his mother, right? But he still had motions that were taught by the kung fu that he learned from his dad,
Yeah.
the aggressive. So there was like that mix, and it was just like, oh, the balance is just. I mean, like that was like the thing, right? Like even the dragon constantly formed the yin yang symbol in when it flew around, just kind of showing the balance and necessary for it, why it's necessary, and it was just so good, like because he wasn't moving completely like his mother. He found a way to, because I don't think he was able to master that. He wouldn't be able to master that form of fighting in 3 days, right? But
Yeah.
he was able to learn just enough to mix that and what he learned from his dad growing up,
Yeah.
which
And
was
even
really
then, like,
cool.
yeah, and I love like I had the flashback to when um the night, unfortunately, when she died.
Mm, yeah.
But then that night she was teaching them the different moves,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just moving him like this and
Mm-hmm.
teaching him the
Oh.
moves and like follow the heart of the dragon. So it's like it was with him this whole time that he like forgot that it was
Mm-hmm.
there. Because like
Yeah.
remember when the auntie was like, "Oh, you have to remember who you are," and it's like
Right.
both, you're both, and like
Mm-hmm.
all these different things. And I feel like he blocked it out because that night was so traumatic for him. Like,
Right. It's like
awesome.
it calls to mind our as our in our faith. Catholics, we ought to be on the side of both and
Yeah.
rather than either or. And that's kind of what I kept on, you know, paralleling it to in our faith. We have, especially right now, there's a lot of polarizing arguments and
Mm-hmm.
disagreements, but there's always both and in every situation. And there's okay, we have the capability of finding that. It's just when we let our pride and ego get in the way, it blinds us. um, but there's definitely got to be a way for us to find that balance in our day-to-days, and a lesson that we can probably learn from this movie, I think, is trying to find that both and the balance of understanding both of these things and taking the good from both and finding a way to work it out, you know um but yeah, that's kind of one of the deeper themes that I really enjoyed from this film. And I know I think it's like very down into um like like I think it's Buddhist mentality of like self mastery and balance and stuff like that. But I think there's still truth to that in a way that we just got to find the terminology that's within our faith about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah. And like,
Catholics.
I feel like even on top of what you said, like, um, the word shame came to mind a lot, like on top of pride
Mm-hmm.
and ego, like you said, like pride and ego keeping us from that. I feel like a lot of us run from our past
Mm-hmm.
because of the shame. And then the shame is what fuels that pride and ego of like, oh, I can't be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so, oh, that hurt me
Yeah.
so much because
Mm-hmm.
I think very luckily, like I recognized that I had all the shame from my past a few years
Mm-hmm.
ago. I finally just was able, like through the Catholic faith, after seeing Jesus be beaten on the cross or like being beaten on his way to the cross, and we're the ones throwing rocks at the guy, and then having
Yeah.
him forgive us. I feel like that unlocked a lot of forgiveness in my heart of like, okay, listen, like if God could be mocked,
Yeah.
I can forgive whoever's hurt me,
Mm-hmm.
like it's my mom or like my siblings. And so the entire movie, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, this is going to be redeemed. It's going to be fine. Like, Shang-Chi and Chua Ling are going to just hug it out with their dad and be like, you are forgiven. And it just never came. And I was like, oh no. like,
Oh no, yeah, it
uh,
is tough.
but it's just, I mean, we're human. And so I get it, like sometimes we just can't have that clarity. And so for Shang-Chi, or maybe it's an unspoken thing with Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi embraces both his mom and his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe
Yeah.
that's even something the elders at Talo didn't see coming, because they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, remember who you are. And I don't know if they thought, like, oh, who you are is also your dad. But
Mm-hmm.
um, it just was so great for Shang-Chi, like you've been saying, to like mold the two together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just so beautiful to see the beauty in your history, because I feel like everyone has such a tough history. Even the Catholic Church has such a tough history to like
Mm-hmm.
take in. And so it's just really awesome to see that, like you've been saying. And even
Yeah.
then, like you can have even more of a pride in who you are when you
Mm-hmm.
finally unleash the shackles of shame. Or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much there, and I think in the trailer, if I remember correctly, the line that was delivered in uh, excuse my ignorance, is Chinese. What's their culture?
mm-hmm.
What is their language?
Yeah, they were speaking Chinese.
It was Chinese, but there's a different. Is there a different word for it?
I know there's Mandarin, and then there's Cantonese, and there's a few
Cantonese,
others.
yeah. So I'm not sure which of the language they were speaking, but it was like Chinese, right? But so like it was the line was originally in the movie delivered in Chinese, but in the trailer it was delivered in English. I don't know if you remember that. One of the first teaser trailers, or the first teaser trailer, it was like, whether you like it or not, you are the grace of your mother, and whether you like it or not, you are the product of your father as well. Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, and it was just like that's another thing too. It's just that they didn't shy away from having all the like American speaking like
Yeah, I love.
parts, which I loved. I was like, yes, like this is great. Like this is keeping it so authentic to the
Mhm.
experience, even though I don't speak Chinese, like it's just like they're not putting up a front and pretending like everybody knows how to speak English.
Oh yeah, and the best part was that Katie didn't even speak Chinese very well.
Right,
Oh,
right.
oh my gosh, I feel this all the time around my family table. It's like I have no idea what you're saying. I'm so sorry. you know, and then
Yeah.
the olive. I just was like, ugh.
I understand it very well. I can speak it okay, but like if I have there's like certain words I just like to sit there and think like what is the word for this thing, and I'll just end up speaking Taglish. But you know,
Yeah,
I only knew that because I grew up watching the Filipino channel. you know? Yeah, TFC, just watching it all the time
yeah.
as a kid.
I really tried getting into it, but that's a great time. So, as a kid, I thought it was cool to be Filipino. So I would always like, oh, let's watch Sexy. Let's watch I forget the name of Wow Wow Wee. Like, let's watch all
Well,
these
yeah, yeah.
Filipino shows. But then my siblings were always like, "What the heck are you doing? Like, are you trying to do this to be cool?" And so I was like, "Oh shoot!" Like, well, yeah, I was, but
Yeah.
like, it was like just like not normal. So it was almost like, don't stop trying to be so Filipino. Like, it's not who we are,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
And so to see Katie then meet when they're sitting around the dinner table, and
Yeah.
Shang-Chi is like, her name's Katie. And Wenwu was like, well, no, what's your Chinese name?
Mm,
And he talks about like, it's so important that we have our name because it reminds
mm,
us of where we're from.
mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like we have so much ownership over our names and where we're from. Because, like, for example, I don't know if your name is like this, but in my whole family, on both sides of my mom and dad, everyone's middle name is our mom's maiden name.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then our last name's our last name. But then we have
Mm-hmm.
two first.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind that. But we all have the same middle name because it's our mom's maiden name. And so we have so much tie to like our family lineage. Like, I can tell you that like the past 3 generations, all their last names. And it's
Wow.
so interesting because like even though maybe we don't have the language, maybe we don't have the culture, we still have such a huge tie to our names. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Mm-hmm.
so cool to like be able to trace that back and just like know how far we've gone and just know who our ancestors are. And with
Yeah.
that, it's open, then it's also our culture without us even realizing. Like,
Yeah.
also,
Definitely. My dad's middle name is my mom's. His mom's maiden name, but for my middle name, it was my dad's name, like shortened. Like my
yeah.
dad's name is Harrison, but my middle name is Harris.
Ooh,
Um, yeah, so I don't know what came about that, but yeah, it's interesting because there's like certain different things that we have that's part of our like culture that is so unconscious that is so cool. Like even the smallest details, like you said about the names, but also like in the a very passing moment of just when um when Sean came to Katie's house,
mhm,
and he just like the movements of just him taking his shoes off, and then all
mhm,
the shoes being in the front, and like it was just like that is just
yeah,
so authentic to like all Asian households. Like you don't wear shoes in the house, like and I thought that was just like how all houses were. I mean, like some still are, but like it's a majority like Asian thing, to do so. And it's like and then like I don't know if you had this, but like at home you had like home like slippers that you would wear at home inside the house only. They didn't go outside. If you didn't went outside, then they're outside slippers.
mhm.
Did you have that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My mom like chases me around the kitchen if I don't have shoes on. She's like, "Put your slippers on."
And because of that, my feet are very soft and delicate.
No, straight up. So I have 2 roommates, and one of them's Mexican, the other one's white.
Yeah.
And I swear, I feel so embarrassed every time I walk downstairs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I have 5 pairs of shoes in front of the door. And, like, their shoes are like all away. And I'm like, I'm just, I know, guys, I'm sorry. I take off my shoes the moment I get home. And I'm just going to go pick them up and bring them upstairs. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
It's just,
so
I totally get that. But
yeah.
even on that string, because like you say, like that's something that we see and we can relate to. I mentioned like the karaoke. It's like, oh yeah, that was my
Yeah.
friend. I mean, that
Oh
was my
yeah.
family. That was my
Hmm.
friend. It's so cool because like I grew up singing karaoke. My cousins would take me to go karaoke in downtown
Hmm.
Lake and when I was home in Hawaii.
Hmm.
And now I have all these friends who are stationed in Pearl Harbor, and they're
Hmm.
all different ethnicities. And I'm like, oh, so what do you do for fun? And they're like, oh, we do this and that. And at the end of the night, we go to Cafe Duck Butt and go karaoke. I'm like, no way. Like,
That's amazing.
it's finally reaching the rest of my friends. Like,
Yeah.
it's great. And it's just like so cool to see that happening. It's like
Hmm.
when I was watching it, I was like, wow, I don't relate to this because I don't go out as much anymore. But
Hmm.
it's so cool to know, like, I feel like I'm watching my friends who aren't even Asian. And I know
Yeah.
that when they see this, they're gonna be like, oh, that's us at Cafe Duck Butt. Like,
Yeah. That's amazing.
oh, it's just, it's, I'm so excited for them to like experience that. And I'm really like, ask, like,
Hmm.
did you relate? Did you relate?
Yeah. 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 Definitely. It's so they have so many little things like that in the film that just like it just speaks to us so much. Like I mean, even the song choices, like a whole new world. Like that's one of the karaoke classics for us.
Yeah.
Don't want to miss a thing. Like that is like one of my favorite karaoke songs.
Yeah.
And literally that's the song that the last song that we played at our wedding, and everyone like sang with us. It was
It's
so good.
awesome.
It's like deep. It's like so deep. So like just even that, and then like obviously the theme that's like kind of stereotypical of like not stereotypical, but like you always want to measure. You want to like especially the pressure of like being a first generation. Like like our parents migrated to America to give us a better life, and hopefully
Oh,
they really want us to have like a really good successful job. They want us to be like their friend who's a lawyer, right?
mhm.
But like And then like just what Katie said in the bus, like, oh, look at her writing her research paper in the plane. That's the woman that my mom wished came out of her, what, you know. I'm like, jeez. So true though at some points, because like, I mean, I don't know how many times you heard this growing up, but like, why can't you just be like more like blah 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 blah,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
all the time.
just this comparison game. And it's not like, and I know our parents meant well when they said this, because they want us to have like to be wealthy, so that they won't live like they did in the Philippines or in their country, which I understand, right? But there is like a sense of like pressure of like, oh man, if I don't do this, then am I a failure? Like this and that. Where like
Mm-hmm.
Katie and Sean are just like loving being valet drivers and things like that. And I was a valet driver at some point too, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool. But yeah, just like these little things, like even when I went to study theology, I remember my dad was like super hesitant at first, like, what's that? What kind of money is that gonna make you? And I was like,
Yeah,
maybe like 35K a year, like
yeah,
tops. He was like, why? Like, what are you doing that? Like, you're spending all this money just to get that kind of job that won't even pay your tuition? I was like, in a year? I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. So like, but it's something I knew I wanted to do. Um, Obviously throughout the after time goes, they became more supportive. But it's just something. It's not like our parents wanting, like, hating on what we do or what They just genuinely want us to live a better life than they did, and not
Yeah.
to be worried about money because they were so worried about money, or like affording things. And I understand that. But a lot of people can take that pressure differently. Some people can take it and actually find joy in becoming a nurse or a doctor, or an accountant, or somebody who makes like six figures a year. But not all of us are cut out for that. you know as
Yeah.
Joe Coy put it, some of us just want to be a Jabberwocky. you know
Oh, I know, it's so funny. It's because it's so true though. And it's
Right.
like, I think you're so right when you say um, people deal with it in different ways. Like I know, like that idea of being a failure has been that voice in my head for so long. And it
Mm-hmm.
comes from like, oh, like in the province, like
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, like I think it's just like it's very much like what Shang-Chi was upset at his dad for. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you raised me to be a killer, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And
Yeah.
it's like I feel like sometimes it's like you raised me to have unreasonably high standards for myself.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it's
Is
like
that what you want?
and it's like I did. I literally failed. Like I
Mm-hmm.
that's why I got out of the Navy. Was I just it was so stressful, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I need to get my life together. Like I'm like not becoming this woman of God I want to be. I'm on the verge of like just mental breakdown every day, and so I feel like seeing Katie and Shang-Chi just be like, we're gonna be valet drivers and we're gonna do our
Yeah.
thing is cool, and I feel like at the same time a lot of people in our generation are now becoming so anti. I don't know if you've noticed this,
Mm.
but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of our parents who are first generation or who were the ones who immigrated are very conservative, very put your head down, work hard. And
Mm-hmm.
now our generation is like, woo, we're gonna do whatever we want. We're gonna get all these kids. We're gonna like essentially be what Shuang Ling was, which is like, I'm gonna run this like underground crime, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not that's extreme, but it's like I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people our generation now are like soul searching a lot and
Mm-hmm.
in different forms of all these different like I'm gonna be like liberative of who I am and
Mm-hmm.
be like I don't know, like do all the women's marches. Nothing wrong with a women's march, but I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
explain this. You know what
I
I'm
know what you
saying?
mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like
Yeah.
we for once we have like the freedom of not having that pressure and the
Mm-hmm.
ability to explore. You know, and you know when people want to call it oppression. It's not oppression, right? For some extreme cases, it might be like if your parents are really forcing you to do one thing that you really don't want to do, like, yeah, sure. But um, forcing is definitely like a word that we should use less, like forcing in extreme ways. So, my parents wanted me to be a nurse, like just like every other person. But I really can't, like, I don't care to do anything when it comes to the body, and I love it. I have friends who are nurses, and they find so much like um purpose in like being able to help the sick, and that's amazing, and I love them for it, because I'll text them when I have a need advice about like this weird thing that's growing on my arm, like like, hey, should I see a doctor about this? Like, well, put some ointment on it, but for me it was like I want to speak to the spiritual, like I want to talk to people on their side of their faith, like I don't want to just like, it's just like people have an opportunity to choose after they get to a point of adulthood, and make the decision. And it's never really too late to kind of like make a career path change, um, and it might feel as if like it's too late, but it really isn't. One video I saw, just to kind of like to tie this in together, is they said, whether if you're deciding, like if you're scared to take a class, a 4-year course, because you'll be, you'll end up being 32 by the end of it, in 4 years or not, you're gonna be 32. Is whether or not you have like the knowledge of those 4 years, that 4-year course. It'll be the only difference. And so like yeah, it's true. Like, like whatever it is, like we as, Asians, I mean people in general, we have this like, yeah, this pressure that we got from our families, which again, like I said, is not, I don't believe, in almost all cases, is malicious. It's for our betterment. But I think a lot of us are just starting to realize, like, oh, we have this chance to like actually make a decision. And so I think that's where the rebellion comes from. Long roundabout to back to where you said what you're saying. And yeah, I don't know if rebellion is the right word, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like a realization, like, oh, I can actually do something. And my parents might say something or might be unsupported, but at the end of the day, your parents love you. They're going to take care of you. They're going to root for you, like, just like when Root, like, he realized at the end, like, ah, crap, I was wrong, right? Like, it wasn't Lee behind that door. And I think just this is going to go down a different route here. The thing about his apology, like you were saying earlier, like it never came, like, but I think that was so powerful to the experience of like, I mean, I guess like just Asian American experience of like family relationships, because like there is often nonverbal communications and just looks of like, my mom would look at me and was like, I know I better not do this. And she'll look at me, she'll give me that look, and I know that I shouldn't do what I'm about to do. Or like, my dad will tell me, okay, go ahead, like give me a nod, and I know I can go. He'll be okay with me doing whatever I'm doing, like. But there's also that sense of this forgiveness that happens despite the lack of verbal communication at that that moment, as he's dying, as his soul is being taken away. And for the first time, we really see his hands open up.
Yeah.
To be like his wife, and that's how Shang-Chi gets the rings. And there's not really that moment of being able to mourn because he has to now fight this soul sucker who just killed his father and
Yeah.
save the rest of Talo. And I just thought it was just so well written. And I spoke to a few friends, and I didn't know if it was just me who noticed it, and I like was confirmed by a lot of my friends who said that. I was like, yeah, one of them said they if they had written it anyway any way else, it would be authentic to the experience as with your relationship with parents as Asians.
It's so true. And I think that's such a valid point that like it's not spoken. And I think I was saying earlier, like it really heaved me a lot to like not see Talo
Mm-hmm.
finally accept Wenwu.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just the story of life, you know? Like I
Yeah.
think about a lot of different families and different circumstances where maybe like the feuding parties, you know,
Mm-hmm.
are like one side of the family and the other, and they don't like the central unit, which is that one family, you know. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, what matters is like who is the father, who's the mother, and who are the children, and what's their
Mm.
relationship there. Not so much,
Yeah.
oh, what's going on between our in-laws, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think now I'm finally having a lot of peace with that.
Yeah.
No, like Paulo doesn't need to finally accept Wenwu. Like
Mm-hmm.
what matters is like what's his relationship with his son, and then what's his relationship with Shualing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think I will say Shualing though. I think Shualing thinks Shang-Chi killed their dad.
Oh,
That because
really?
she looked back and she just gave like an approving nod. But I think it's because she thinks Shang-Chi killed him.
Mm.
I did not. I don't know.
Interesting.
That's what I gathered from it. I could be totally wrong, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't think that, but that would be interesting. It was obvious, like to me, like she wanted to. Like I wasn't surprised that she took over the Ten Rings
Oh yeah, she was
organization at the end.
sus. She was shady from the beginning. Like
Super shady.
I honestly thought she was like she had called Shang-Chi to her fighting ring so that her dad can bring them like back to the compound. I
Right,
thought she was
right,
like colluding with her dad the whole time. Then I realized she wasn't, but
right, right.
she's
I
sketchy.
think, I think one thing that I kind of saw in her was that she definitely wanted to, um, make I guess I don't know, give women the opportunities to fight. Like obviously that was her whole thing throughout the movie, and that's why in the end there's the fighters in the Ten Rings were not just men; there were women and men. Um, and it'll be interesting to see what she does with them. I don't know what she's planning to do. Like, why? What would she want to do with that organization? Is interesting, especially since she doesn't have the rings herself.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting
And
to see.
I saw someone say like the ending said the Ten Rings will return, not Shang-Chi. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
they were predicting that there was going to be a Shualing versus Shang-Chi fight in the future for the 10.
Oh, that is spicy. That
And
would be really cool. That would
but
be really cool.
I think her compound just shows the freedom of choice that we were discussing among
Mm-hmm.
first generation or even children of traditional Asian parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because we noticed the compound. Did you watch the post credit scene? Right?
Yeah,
Where yeah,
yeah.
obviously you did. Um, where like the compound is no longer just traditional. Now it's like more concrete and there's graffiti
Graffiti. Yeah.
everywhere. And it's totally like the embodiment of what we were saying, like, oh, now there's
Right.
freedom of choice. And so they're
Right.
not going to stick with the strict traditional architecture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much. Yeah. There were so much details in those last few seconds. I try to like watch it again, like when I watch it the second time, just like see if there's anything I missed, like far reaches, and it's just really cool. Um, but yeah, so Shang-Chi in general has done so much great things. I think, like I said, for the Asian community, but also just in general with the storytelling aspect of it, and that's what captivates all of us. And so Marvel does this all the time. And so at this second half of the episode, we're gonna go ahead and talk about why storytelling, what made this storytelling so compelling, what did so well, and why Marvel's so good at it. And yeah, we'll be right back after this short break.
If you did not know, Living Ardently is now an affiliate with Be a Heart Design. Be a Heart has a bunch of great things for you and your family. So if you want to go get something, use our affiliate link in our show notes, and then you can use our promo code Ardently10 for 10% off your purchase. Everything that we make goes straight back into our podcast, so you'll be supporting our ministry. Again, so if you want to get something nice for yourself, for your friends, or your family, go to Be a Heart using our affiliate link. Use our promo code Ardently10 for 10% off. And not only will you be helping the ministry here at Living Ardently, but you'll be getting something cool too. Again, link in the show notes, Ardently10. Let's get back to it.
All right, we're back with Noreen Domingo. We're talking about Shang-Chi today, like I said. Make sure you follow Living Ardently on Instagram, and then myself at It's Only Adrian. Follow Noreen over at what is it again?
Noreen_May.
May, there you go. And Mae, right?
MAE.
There you go. Not the month May. And follow us on if you're not subscribed already to YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed to anywhere else that you're listening to the podcast, and leave us a rating if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. All super helpful, and we really do appreciate it. Anyway, so we kind of ended our talks with there's so much more to talk about Shang-Chi, right? But we're gonna just kind of take a step back and talk about the storytelling aspect of it, and then in general, just like how Marvel is able to do this so well for 25 movies and shows now, right? So Shang-Chi, like, what did they do? Like, they start off with backstory, right? It's his mom. His mom who's
it's
telling the
his
story.
mom telling the story of Wen Wu's takeover
Yeah.
for the past thousands of years, and how he like finds the rings too.
Right, and then it goes into present day. You're just catching up with Shang-Chi. Then he kind of then it picks up with him, Shang-Chi telling Katie some more of the story, right? And then later on picks up again with Renru. Oh no, Xiao Li. She tells a bit of the story too, backstory of it when she was left alone by her brother. And then in the when she was telling Katie in the end of in the fight in her rink, wherever you call it, her underground fighting organization, Fight Club. There you go. Marvel Fight Club.
Yeah.
Featuring Wong and Abomination.
I know that was I mean, I saw
great.
that thing because I was just like, oh, this is so cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what the heck, Wong? What are you doing in an illegal fighting ring?
Right, they're trying to get some money. That's how they get their money in Marvel. They just fight under a club. Kidding. That's always a question, right? How do these people make the money, like these heroes?
Right? Yeah, like they talk about in Falcon.
Falcon, right? Yeah, that's really funny. And then Renru kind of like tells a bit more, and I think maybe he visited his auntie told a bit more. She gave a bit more of the backstory, or was it just like a flash? No, it was a flashback to him.
Like his flashbacks after she said like, "Oh, remember who you are."
Yeah.
And then he sat by the water.
Katie catch up.
Relived that night. That Lee died again.
That's right. That's right. And it was just like again, the backstory was just so sprinkled in that it just like made the movie progress, but also still kept you captivated to the story of who he was growing up, and the story of not just his perspective, but from from his sisters, from his dad's, and from his mother's even.
Yeah, because I even see. So I don't know if you got this vibe. Did you get Kill Bill vibes?
I didn't see it,
Oh, you never
so
seen Kill Bill? Okay.
no,
So I
I
guess
can't
it's
say.
kind
Say
of like
more though.
a funky movie, but because there's a lot, I've seen other movies that have a lot of flashbacks, and Kill Bill is one of them.
Mm.
And I just remember being so confused the
Mm-hmm.
entire movie, like, why are we back here? Like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like you said, with the flashbacks here, I made it like a nice. It went really nicely. It flowed nicely. So I just felt like it was so fluid,
Mm-hmm.
going in and out, and kept me captivated better than
Right.
the other movies have.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I don't know if there's like that's a particular. There's a particular practice in how they did that, or if there's like a method in film that's called. But it was just done so well, and I think Marvel in general, not just backstories and but telling stories in general, that captivates us as 20-year-olds loving heroes. Like superheroes are used to be just for kids and TV shows and cartoons, and for the nerds who love comics. Now we are all nerds who love comics and the movies. But how did they get to this point? Um, what are some of the movies that come to mind when you think of Marvel storytelling like at its finest?
Oh man. I guess the one that's freshest in my mind is not even a movie, it's the show. It's WandaVision. I think
Mm-hmm.
the way
Mm-hmm.
they told that story, one of like the vignettes of each episode and how it it's like simply never been done before, I don't think,
Yeah.
where they have like different time periods,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they have like the 50s and they go to the 60s and they have each one, but then as it's going along, just more and more is being revealed.
Right.
And I really feel like it doesn't even make sense until maybe the fourth episode. You're like, oh, okay, this is a TV show. Got it. We're
Mm-hmm.
in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't even really make sense until maybe the second to last episode where Wanda is going through all of her trauma with
Mm-hmm.
Agatha. And you're like, wow. So that's why we're looking at TV shows because Wanda was attached to like Dick Van Dyke as a kid.
Right.
And that was the last thing. And it's just crazy how like it all fuels it. And then not even that,
Mm-hmm.
but like the love story with Vision the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
where she's just grieving. And I just love how it ties in her trauma into like, it's almost like a dream. Like, how like your dreams are really just your
Yeah.
suppressed
Yeah.
thoughts. It's almost like that. Like her trauma of her love for Vision and her attachment to these shows throughout her life are really coming to fold. And it just shows like how complex the human mind can be and how we all think. And at the same
Yeah.
time, like just how much your pain can fuel your behavior. And I just love how they tell the story of WandaVision because
Mm-hmm.
it shows the complexities of the human mind and just how linear, like as complicated as our traumas can be, there's also how linear it is in the
Mm-hmm.
way of it. So I love
Yeah.
that's really what I think of with great storytelling.
Yeah. Mine is. I mean, there's the shows are so good because they're so much longer than the movies, and there's so
Mhm.
much more room for character development. And despite it, even like the short series, like these are limited series, unlike the first two, like Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision, they're two limited series that are not gonna have a second season. They're just like one and done. But like Loki, even like there's so much more there that you can do, and there's so much, those the first two were like what 4 episodes, 6 episodes. I think
Mhm.
Falcon was only 4, was it? Or
No, Falcon was 6. I think
6,
Wanda was 9.
8, 8 and 9? Yeah. And Loki was 6.
Mhm.
Um, but even 6, I mean, think about it. So watching a 6-hour movie, like, oh man, that's a long time. But like breaking it up into like um, 40-minute episodes is great. And so, in any case, I think the shows are going to be like the future of like Marvel. Um, but I think the best movie that I've enjoyed, um, storytelling wise, was Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, just kind of going back to to um, Civil War as his first, like, just kind of like showing his motive and how, like, yeah, there's different directors and at the time of when they filmed Civil War and like his premiere, like how he showed up to the MCU, but with Black Panther, it was just such a great like trial up and down, and just like I think it was like the first super villain or villain from a Marvel film that just kind of had so much more depth to why he wanted to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, like unlike like Whiplash from Iron Man, or some of these more linear hero villains. It still made, didn't take away from the films themselves, but when you add character development to like the villains like Wenru, Thanos, and Killmonger, like it just adds so many more layers to the already beautiful movie and storytelling. And I don't think we ever got to this point of talking about this, and I just want to kind of go back to that. Black Panther meant so much for the Black community, for our, like just having a hero like that was standalone on his own, and like pretty much the entire cast except for like one man, I think, was Black, and it was just like amazing for them. And I didn't know, like I knew that was awesome. I loved it, and it was like one of my favorite Marvel movies for like a long time, until like probably Endgame. Endgame probably like toppled it over. But the impact that it had on the community, the Black community, I didn't realize to the full extent until Shang-Chi came along. Like Shang-Chi has had probably the similar impact, if not, the same impact on the Asian community as it has had, like Black Panther had with the Black community. And I think that's been like one of the biggest takeaways from how Marvel is able to tell a fictional story of like the Talo or Wakanda, and bring in a community of people who love these characters, who believe in these characters. Like even when God rest his soul, when Chadwick was alive, like people only greeted him with Wakanda forever, the salute. I'm sure Simon Liu is like really glad that they don't have a salute for him to do every time, a Talo salute. But it's just really, I think it's just really a testament to how Marvel is able to tell these stories of fictional like characters, but also be able to what is the word, to like welcome or to embrace a community of people who help them feel seen through like this story.
Yeah.
I think it's just very powerful, and that's why I think storytelling is not just, when you watch movies, it's not just for kids, man. Like this is a way to tell the story of people who, like you said, we related to a lot of things about Shang and Katie, but we are not superpowered human beings with 10 rings, like we're just normal people, but they just did it so well, and they do it so well every time, with the
And I think
exception of Thor: The Dark World, but
I like the Dark World, but I think that's why they're so good at
yeah.
what they do, because they identify with their audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like even watching Black Panther, I feel like anyone could also relate to the sense of belonging that Killmonger wants.
Right.
I feel
Right.
like a lot of people can relate here in Shang-Chi with the different aspects of like, oh, the pressure from your parents, or seeing your friend who's a lawyer and you're not,
Right. Right.
and I think that's why they do it such a good job, is because I think just like how Jesus was the unlikely carpenter's son, I think they choose the unlikely hero each time. Like with Natasha, the Black Widow, you know, like she had such a defiled past, you know, and they still chose her, or they still choose Hawkeye. You know, Hawkeye is just this Midwestern farmer with his family, you know, and like Steve Rogers, the really weak dude, you know, and
Right.
so I feel like each time they introduce a hero, they also introduce their flaw, which I guess you see that even back in the epic times, like literally epics, like um with Achilles, you know, he had his flaw. He literally had a heel. And like
Right.
or you see that with Odysseus, you see that with all these different like heroes as far back as you can go, you know, they all have their epic flaw. And so
Right.
I think Marvel does a really good job at showing like, hey, I'm not perfect. This is approachable for everybody. And I think that's one of the reasons why they have such great storytelling, is because not only is this a fight between the hero and the villain, it's also a development among like inside the character of like, this is how I'm changing. And like, I feel like every good story has that. Like, you need to have a dynamic character.
Right.
The way that they show it throughout the writing and just even throughout the actions of each character is just so intentional of like how they conduct themselves, how they carry themselves, how they choose their words.
Right.
So I think that's what contributes a lot to the great storytelling as well.
Yeah, and they do I mean, like, inarguably there's other films that obviously will do similar great storytelling, but it's impressive. Like, you know, like you go back to even the Star Wars trilogy, original trilogy. There's so much richness in the original trilogy of like twists and turns and relationships and how things develop throughout the films that kept you captivated, you know, and just like the lore of it all. The Lord of the Rings, especially, like that too. Harry Potter, like these are great stories that were developed throughout years. Um, but no one has done it quite like Marvel, in my opinion.
Honestly, truthfully.
25 movies plus four TV shows now, all within like great character development. Obviously some recastments, but like, you know, that's like a different thing. And it's just very impressive. And honestly, I hope that they get their credit for doing what they're doing when we're older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah, like Kevin Feige,
Feige.
or Feige, sorry.
Just kidding. Yeah, it is Feige, but I always make
Kevin Feige.
my friend called him Kevin Feige once. I was like, what?
Oh my gosh. I just think Disney in general, like Disney just does everything so well.
Yeah, yeah,
You
and
know?
people want to give them crap for some of the decisions that they make, and yeah, they're not perfect either. You know, like, you
Yeah,
know,
like
some of the
Star
decisions
Wars.
they make. Star Wars, yikes! Yeah, that's why I mentioned the original trilogy and
Uh,
the Mandalorian. You know,
I don't
um, Mandalorian's fire. If you haven't watched that,
know.
but yeah, so like they just do really good stuff, and you know, we hope that, you know, my goal. I'm a big MCU fan. I'm a big nerd fan in general. I love Star Wars. I love, you know, I love Harry Potter. I love, I'm trying to get into Lord of the Rings. My wife loves Lord of the Rings, and I only watched it like once when I was younger. Um,
Careful. Because I did the same thing with Lord of the Rings. I hated it as a kid because all my siblings would watch the extended versions very often. And it was before I could appreciate it. So I hated Lord of the Rings for the
uh-huh,
longest time.
uh-huh.
And then like a month ago, I was like, you know what? Let's give it another try. And I was hooked. Oh my gosh. I watched all of them like in one weekend. And I was like, I
Wow.
love it. Now let's go back and
Yeah.
watch the extended version.
That's amazing. I
And I was
had
like,
a
okay.
friend sent me a YouTube playlist of this guy who did an audiobook that is like really high quality audiobook. that I'm gonna listen to the. So I'm gonna do is like listen to the audiobook and then watch the movie and just compare and just kind of like go back and forth. So we'll see how that goes. But stay tuned to find out. But Marvel is definitely like one of my favorite. Like despite me loving all these different things, I gotta say Marvel, with Star Wars as a close second, is like they're my favorite. Like ways to kind of not escape, but like I guess that is the thing that they do is like give you a moment to escape the reality of this world and go into this magical place of Talo or Wakanda or just like other worldly thing of like Thanos being a creature that is real, and help you believe like yeah these heroes are so real. And right now like Marvel started with like these kind of like more easy to believe heroes that got them started, where now like we're getting into like Eternals and some more cosmic entities and things like that will be a little bit harder, but I only think that's possible for them to be successful because I mean look at WandaVision and Loki. Like these are super like over the top, like outside of what Iron Man was.
Oh yeah.
But it's only possible because they started down there and built up. And Shang-Chi and like Falcon the Winter Soldier are on that same level of like, we're down to earth. I mean, Shang-Chi is kind of like in the middle there because
Yeah.
of the
Other
soul
dimensions.
suckers
Yeah.
and Talo, but like it still very feels like a down to earth character, that is someone is still relatable. So I think that's one thing, a few things that they do well. That was just my last note there. You have anything else? One last thing you don't say?
I think just what they do well is like you've been saying, like to give a good history so that you get an idea of like where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like I feel like you could easily just tell a story of like, oh yeah, there's this father and the son, and then their daughter and mother, and this is
Mm-hmm.
just what happened, but they give like, no, but this is the cultural context. This is the relationship they have. This is the type of world that they now live in, and this is just like the this is what life is like in San Francisco as an Asian
Right.
American,
Right.
and so they just give all these different contexts and they go through all the different layers and they intentionally incorporate that into their character development. And I think that's another really good thing that they do.
Yeah.
And just yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's what makes Shang-Chi so good is that the imagery,
Yeah.
the depth, and the interpersonal relationships. So,
Yeah. And there's so much more that we could talk about. Like I said, in many details that we probably didn't go through, but we hope that the thing that we're going to start doing here is we're going to have Noreen back in the future, and we're going to talk about other Marvel stuff, Marvel stories, and Marvel movies and things like that. So if you have a particular one that you enjoyed and want to kind of have us talk about it in a Catholic mindset, we're gonna have those opportunities now. We're gonna because one thing what people have talked to me, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, like they want they love and enjoy um podcasts and accounts that kind of let themselves be themselves within the context of faith, like yeah, we know you're Catholic, you don't, like some places are gonna some platforms are gonna give us good Catholic advice, and you don't need to be that to force it. You can just talk about it like normal things that we have in our faith, in our world, and then relate them back to our faith. And we enjoy that. And so that's why we're doing chicken sandwiches reviews again, and that's why we're talking about Marvel now. And it's just gonna be a bit more yeah, not that it's gonna be drastically different from what we were doing. I just think that I'm gonna be talking about things that I personally enjoy too, like that I can talk about for days. And so take my own advice and do it. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And hopefully you enjoy it. And again, if you have anything that you particularly want us to talk about, let us know in the show notes, in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or just let us know on social media to continue the conversation. But yeah, Noreen, thanks for coming on and chatting about Shang-Chi and Marvel and all that stuff. And I'm looking forward to the future episodes that we do on these things.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I feel like just stories are a part of life, and that's where we find God. And so just being able to be here to talk about what we see in the movies and just how we relate to it is just such an honor. I feel like I finally have people to talk to about it. So.
Yeah, it's fun, huh? It's great. Yeah. So again, go follow Noreen at her Instagram account, which is Noreen_May on Instagram, MAE. Follow me at It's Only Adrian. Follow Living Ardently at Living Ardently on Instagram. We're also available on TikTok, Living Ardently POD on TikTok. Subscribe on YouTube and podcast wherever you listen to. And yeah, you can call us at the number below if you wanted to chat or have any prayer requests. Send them there, and I'll respond to you. And yeah, I think that's all we got. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. And till the next time we have Noreen on, until the next episode, whenever that is, we'll see you then. God bless y'all. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep living ardently.